What's happening, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Crossed Up. Early on Monday morning, after the Phillies split a 4-game series with the Miami Marlins at home. I'll repeat that one more time, Anthony. The Phillies split a 4-game series with the Miami Marlins at home, and it took quite a comeback to do it. What looked like was going to be an absolute disaster of a weekend on many fronts was salvaged in the late innings yesterday. So, huzzah, whoop-de-doo. We have not talked here in a while to our listeners. I think you have some fingers you want to point here.
Well, yeah. So listen, all right. So there's two reasons. We actually had a show last Monday, and it's on our YouTube page. If you don't believe us, right?
A YouTube exclusive.
Yeah, you can find it on the Crossing Broad YouTube page. We actually did the show last week, but with Russ going away on vacation, he was a little bit lax in getting it up in time for our feed, the people who listen only on the feed. So that's why I didn't get up.
Can I just say this too? I'll further. You already ran Russ over with the bus. I'm going to back it up and do it again here.
Go ahead.
I said, hey, man, I know you're on vacation. I don't want to bother you. Like, look, I forgot. We should have made a contingency plan. He says, no, don't worry about it. I'll get it up for you. No problem. 7:00, I look and see it never goes up. Send him a message. He's like, I totally forgot. Sorry. So not only did he not do it, but he said he was going to do it, and then he didn't do it. The absolute
and then we didn't record. And then we didn't record Friday. You had some other obligations.
Well, so no, I didn't have any obligations. It was my 5-year anniversary. I was in Newport, Rhode Island, and that's a good jumping off point here because Thursday night I'm out. I'm on Bowen's Wharf with my wife, and we're enjoying some drinks and some great weather. And I am checking in on the app. Honestly, I didn't watch a lot of Phillies baseball until yesterday, being away. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, wow, here you go. Zach Wheeler's blowing their doors off as you would expect. And yeah, the offense is having a little bit of a down night, but okay, no big deal. It's going to be a nice crisp 3-0 win. And then I see, I guess the 7th inning, things start to unravel a little bit. I see they give up a run late. I see they tie the game and then they blow it again. It was like Wheeler, it's Strom, it's Hoffman. They don't hit. Then I hear that Schwarber's gone. Then I hear Harper's gone. And by 10:45 at night, I'm sitting at the bar and like I'm ready to go home. Like it went from this like great time, joking around, having fun. And I'm looking at my phone and my wife's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, Philly season might be over. Like, and it all just escalated in a matter of like 35 minutes. And I texted you. I'm like, what the hell's going on down there?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. And they're a little fortunate to come away with these injuries not being as that bad. It seems like it's only going to be a 10-day stint. Certainly for Schwarber, Harper might go an extra couple days beyond that. But in the moment, it did not look good, Bob. I'll be honest, because the Harper injury looked a lot like even worse than the Turner injury, because with Trey, like he took himself right out of the game, and so did Harper. But Trey, you saw him walking off the field, like he didn't have this pained expression. He didn't go down in a heap, after running around third and sliding into home. He just kind of told you were like, oh, okay, maybe it's not that bad, and then it ended up being 6 weeks. Harper's looked a hell of a lot worse. Needed some help, getting off the field a little bit. We're like, oh boy, this is not going to be good. And it turns out that they described it as very similar to the hamstring strain that Brandon Marsh had. He only missed, I think it was 13 days total. So that's a big sigh of relief for the Phillies. But you're right. In the moment, we were all thinking the season just went away, like right there.
So let's talk about the weekend here in a moment, but let's stick on the injuries here for a second. Is it fair to say that when the Phillies open up their 3-game series against the Los Angeles Dodgers on, I believe it's July the 9th, that Kyle Schwarber will be in the lineup? I know he talked to reporters before the game, the finale against the Marlins on Sunday morning, and he sounded optimistic that he would be eligible, or when he is eligible to come off the IL, that he'd be ready to go. Do you buy that? Or do you think the Phillies take the ultra cautious approach?
No, and the reason I don't think they take an ultra cautious route with Schwarber is because he's just going to DH, right? So I think he can get out there. You know, if he's got to run around the bases, take it a little bit easier, right? Maybe he's going base to base and not stretching first to third on a single kind of thing. Not that he does that all the time. He's been doing a lot more this season. But I think it's a little bit more of that, but you get the bat back in the lineup. As far as Bryce, you know how he is. He's going to go when he's ready to go.
So I've been trying to work through this, and there's the part of me that says, this is Bryce Harper. They have to be careful.
Yes.
They have to be careful. There's so much more at stake. So give him the all-star break, maybe even a little bit beyond it. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But then there's the part of me that says Bryce Harper is the National League's starting first baseman in the all-star game. He wants to play in that game, presumably. So he's going to make a push to be available for that game.
Yeah.
Then there's the part of me that says this is Bryce Harper, Shohei Ohtani, Bryce Harper, 3-game series, Phillies, Dodgers. One guy gets a chance to make a statement in a high-profile game that could have MVP implications. The other guy is going to sit that out. That's not in Bryce Harper's DNA. So I'm trying. Normally, I would say there's no way you would see him until after the All-Star break. You just can't risk it. He's a unique player. It's a little bit of a unique situation.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be absolutely floored if we saw him in that series, though. I think it's a long shot. I mean, maybe that's not even the right word. I think it might be irresponsible, but I wouldn't be shocked if we saw him.
No, I wouldn't be shocked either because it's Bryce Harper. I was talking with the Spanish language broadcaster last night, Oscar Budahan, and we were discussing this, and I said to him, I said, just flash back to last year. You know, Harper was coming back from Tommy John, and we were told All-Star break, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, you know, maybe probably late June, and then lo and behold, he comes back May 2nd. Like that's what Bryce Harper does. So he's on his own timeline. When Bryce Harper wants to play, he's going to play. There's not going to be Philly saying to Bryce, well, we want you to be conservative and hold back. It's just not going to happen. But Bryce is also knows his own body. To his credit, he knows his own body well, and he knows that as long as the doctors say, yes, it's okay, he's going to go.
What do you make of the fact that he basically said after the game Thursday night, I'm not sure because I've never really experienced anything like this. So it's not like he has a point of reference necessarily to say, oh, okay, well, last time I went through this, here's where I was at. I knew when I could push it. Doesn't really have that to lean on here. So you do wonder if there's any doubt. Like, he is Bryce Harper. He has a record of getting back and sort of pushing the envelope, but he's also a 31-year-old guy. And I don't know. There's just this part of me that's like, man, he better be careful because this can't happen again.
Yeah, I agree. But I thought it was important that they immediately compared it to Marsh.
Yeah.
Right. Because Marsh was back. I mean, he even went on a rehab assignment. You know, he actually played 2 games with Lehigh Valley before coming back up with the Phillies down in Baltimore last month. So I don't know. Like I look at it and say, look, Harper's not going to do a rehab assignment, but he's going to get out there and he's going to push it on the field. And if he feels like there's a tightness or risk of a setback, I think he's smart enough to say, I won't go.
Yeah.
But at the same, I don't think he'll try and put himself at more risk. But at the same time, if he feels okay, not good enough to play, and the doctors say, yeah, you're okay, it's healed, then he's going to go.
Well, the shame of it is, you just mentioned it, Kyle Schwarber will probably be back against the Dodgers because he's the DH. If Bryce Harper could come back and just DH, I think that might expedite the process a little bit here, but they don't have the luxury because I don't think that they're going to run Kyle Schwarber back out the left field on July 9th. Like, I don't see that happening. So,
no.
All right. Well, yeah, I think that the overall idea here is that the Phillies dodged a bullet and the Braves really didn't capitalize a whole heck of a lot this weekend.
The Phillies actually gained ground on them despite going 2-2.
Yeah, I mean, the Phillies did not have a great weekend themselves, but they did not really lose ground. And certainly Atlanta has an opportunity here. The door is open because what you watch from the Phillies this weekend, I know they scored 7 runs yesterday, and that's great, but this is an offense that is that struggled over the weekend and is likely to struggle here at least for the next 9 games or so. I mean, this is going to be tough, I think, for them, or the next 6 games, I guess, until if Schwarber were to come back, I guess that would be game 7. I mean, this is not ideal. They over the weekend in this 4-game series went 6 for 42 with runners in scoring position. And I know they had 14 hits yesterday. I know they scored 7 runs, but I mean, if Tim Anderson can make a routine play at shortstop, Phillies lose yesterday. I mean, it's just the bottom line. Like, I'm not trying to take anything away from the Phillies, but
I can sit here and tell you if the Phillies don't make 5 errors yesterday.
Yeah, I get it, man. But I mean, the reality is that this lineup stinks. I mean, this is a bad lineup now without, and it's not a criticism of the players in that clubhouse. Like, anytime you take out, arguably, I would say their 2 best hitters, their 2 most impactful hitters in Schwarber and Harper. I guess you could make a case for Turner and maybe even Bohm, but I would say that Schwarber and Harper, in my opinion, are the 2 guys that are really the true difference makers in that lineup right now. You remove them, and then, oh, by the way, it's like we've almost forgotten now because we're a couple weeks out that JT Realmuto is not a part of this. So 3 of the Phillies' 5 best hitters are not in the lineup. You do that to any team across the board, their lineup is going to struggle to score runs. So this is not an indictment of the Phillies' depth or what they are as a team, but this lineup is kind of tough to watch right now.
Yeah, it is, Bob, and you're spot on with that because you put these bench guys into the lineup, here and there with those guys, other guys in the lineup. It's okay, right? I mean, you still have the Schwarbers and the Harpers and the Realmutos. And then guess what? If you're playing with Merrifield, who's been terrible, or Christian Pache, who can't hit, or Johan Rojas is back and he can't hit either, can't get a bunt down. It's okay, but you're okay because you know what? You still have enough thump in the lineup that it really doesn't matter. But if you take those guys out and have to rely on these guys, yes, it makes the lineup look that much weaker. There's no question about it. Even though let's give them their flowers here, Bob. Garrett Stubbs and Rafael Marchand have actually hit okay in the absence of JT Realmuto. Even Stubbs, who was, I think, in all honesty, Marchand being here lit a fire under Stubbs a little bit offensively. Since May 25th, hitting 298, 353 on base. I mean, he's not crushing the ball. Yes, he had hit a home run, which floored me. Not that he hit the home run, because every once in a while you hit a pop fly that ends up being a home run. Dude buried that ball in the right field, and I didn't think that Stubbs had that in him. So it's less the catchers to me. I think that they've been adequate. It's more the replacements that are in the lineup.
Sure.
Harper and Schwarber not being there.
I mean, you have an outfield that has struggled this season. There's no question about it. You're now having to get more of those bats into the lineup because of this. I mean, look, I guess I want to start here. If Christian Pache and Whit Merrifield and Johan Rojas struggle, that should not be a newsflash. They sort of appear to be what they are at this point. I'm not surprised that these guys can't seem to get it going anymore. I don't think that there's another gear for Christian Pache. I don't. He's been dreadful. Johan Rojas, you said it. They brought him back up. I know he was good in AAA. Everybody got excited. I do not believe that the 2024 version of Johan Rojas can hit. I just don't. You're probably not going to change my mind. Okay. I think that Whit Merrifield might be cooked. This is the idea here. Oh, look, you get him more at bats, get him some consistent playing time. I look up, he was not very good yesterday. He was 0 for 3. I know he walked once. He's hitting 188 now. And I mean, it's not like we're 40 at bats into this thing.
I couldn't have been more wrong about Whit Merrifield.
Yeah.
I thought that was such a smart signing by the Phillies. And if you remember back when it happened, I compared it to, when both the Royals and the Cubs brought in Ben Zobrist, because he was that kind of guy.
Yeah.
He could play all those positions and veteran player, and that utility guy who ends up being a key piece to what you're doing and how it's going. He's been nothing of that. And I don't think that there's anything there. I think that when you say you think he's cooked, I agree. I think it's at the point where he can't be a backup guy. He needs more regular at bats. But even when he gets the more regular at bats, he's he's not making good contact. It's like
I mean, he just said it. He had regular at bats this weekend. Over 4 games, he had 10 at bats. He was 1 for 10 with 4 strikeouts.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just at some point you can look to the lack of consistency. Hey, this is an everyday guy. That's what gets him going. There's nothing that has happened this season in any spurt where he's had over the stretch of 3, 4, or 5 days consistent at bats where he's gotten it done. He just hasn't.
Yeah.
So again, you look at those guys, they are going to struggle. I think the Phillies have some work to do in terms of improving this bench. They've gotten away with it to this point because of otherworldly pitching. Some of their dudes this season have been dudes. It has masked, I think, a lot of these holes that you see in terms of the depth. I think that's fair to say.
I look at it and say this, Bob. Amongst those 3 guys, because I think David Dahl's been okay. I think Dahl, since he's come up, he had a chance yesterday and missed on it, but at the same time, he did get a hit. He's hitting like 240 or whatever. I mean, he's been okay. So if you just look at the 3 right-handed guys, Merrifield.
I thought to myself yesterday when I saw the lineup, oh, good, David Dahl's in it. This is their best lineup. Like, that's where you're at right now. I said to myself, oh, yeah, Dahl's in. Cool. But and he's been good. He's been fine.
Yeah.
But, that's not something that you want to say.
No, but what I was about to say, between Merrifield, Rojas, and Pache, if one of those guys was the 26th guy on the roster,
sure,
it's fine. Any one of them. Really, even Merrifield, as bad as he's been, I'm okay because he could still steal a base. He could play, he could spell a couple guys at second, third, and left field, give guys a day off. It's fine if he's the 26th guy, but you can't have 3 26th guys on your roster. So 2 of them are going to have to go. And so the question is, which 2? And I think that we won't know until July 31st, because if you're asking me, I think that they're going to end up, Merrifield's going to go, and then the guy that stays is who doesn't. If they trade Rojas, Pache stays. If they can't trade Rojas, or he's not part of a trade for another outfielder, then Pache will be DFA.
So you think that Whit Merrifield in 30 days from now is not on this team?
I do. I mean, okay. I look at that guy. I look at that guy, and I think maybe another team would take him for nothing.
Yeah.
At this point, and just say, hey, there's been so many injuries in baseball. We'll add this guy and just take a shot and see if it's playing him more every day makes a difference. He was an all-star last year, so maybe that's just a not used to playing every other day or every 5th day or whatever is hurt the guy. We'll take a chance and the Phillies will take nothing back, whatever. And then I think that the Pache Rojas decision, if you have to move Rojas as part of the trade for the big bat that everybody assumes the Phillies are going to go get, then Pache could be your 26th guy. If you don't have to move Rojas as part of that trade, then they probably DFA Pache and Rojas is your 26th guy.
And probably a little bit more comfortable doing so than you would have been a month ago, 2 months ago, right? My whole thing all along is not that I think that he's going to evolve into an everyday player or an impact player. I don't. But it's you don't have the guy out there right now. So I didn't want to cut. This is my perspective. I don't want to cut ties with any of them because I don't. There's nobody that I feel good about. So I want to keep as many of them in the fold as I possibly can. But now as time is going on, I don't want to say I've been the number one Christian Pache supporter, but I'm okay, I think there might be something there. I think he's probably a little bit more usable in this moment, the major league level, than Johan Rojas. But that has not materialized. I mean, he too has really struggled, and especially here lately. I believe over his last 7 games, he's 2 for 16.
Yeah.
It's just no extra base hits. It's been a tough go for him.
Yeah. The only thing that's redeemable about Pache, aside from the fact that he's a good defensive outfielder, is he does work the count. He does take a lot. He gets a lot of deep counts, sees a lot of pitches, occasionally walks. That's something Rojas doesn't do, right? So if I had to say what does he do better than Rojas, it's that. Yeah. It's that, right? Yeah. So but okay, is that a reason to keep both? Is that a reason to keep both of them?
Sure.
No,
Yeah. All right. Well, so I guess your impressions of the series over the weekend from afar, I will tell you, this is a situation for me. my immediate takeaways when the Harper and Schwarber thing happened was, hey, your guys that are remaining need to really get going now. Like, it's time. Like, we shouldn't have to. Quite frankly, the way that we just did this conversation is ass backwards. It's not about Christian Pache. It's not about Johan Rojas. It's not about Whit Merrifield. Like, hey, Bryson Stott, brother, it's time, man. Wake up. Wake up. No more 695 OPS.
I think he's been better since he's been in the leadoff spot.
I get it, but he's been, like, he drove in a pair of runs the other night with sack flies. Like, good job. Like, situationally, good stuff.
He had a couple hits, too.
Come on. Yeah, like yesterday, the 1 for 5. Like, I need more. I need more. I need you to not be a 243 hitter. I expect more out of you. You're my guy. I thought that we were talking about a guy that was on the brink of being an all-star player, and he's not been that. He's just been fine, okay. He's been like, if you were hitting 8th on this team, I'd say cool. He has not been an impact player for them, and I'm stunned by that. So, like, it's time, Bryson, to get rolling here, man.
Yeah. He's OPS plus for the year is 99.
Yeah, he's a guy right now. He is a guy, league average. And like, okay, and progress is not always linear. The career arc is not always linear. Like, I get all that, but I expect a little bit more, and hopefully here over the next week or so, because they need it. Like, this is not going to be easy. I'm not impressed by the Cubs in any way, shape, or form. I think the Cubs stink, actually, but they got a couple decent arms they're going to see this week. The Cubs can pitch a little bit. It's not going to be easy out there, and then you get to Atlanta. The Braves have that one circled. And you're going in and you're limping and you're going to be shorthanded. I know the Braves have injuries too, but certainly the Phillies, I think, in this moment are hurt a little bit more. That's going to be tough. And then obviously the Dodgers as well. Like, they need guys to get going. Now, Nick Castellanos, 4 hits yesterday. Say, all right, great job. You see him climbing up to 230. OPS is inching up towards 700. Like, that's great. But, like, it's almost more, the complaint there would be situationally. Like, there were a couple moments this weekend where Nick Castellanos could have made a big impact and did not. And it's like, come on, like, you got to be the adult in the room now. You, the $20 million guy, have to be a little bit more of a difference maker. The rest of the guys can't hold your hand as you dig yourself out of a 35-foot ditch that you created for yourself in April. Like, you've got to go now. Yesterday maybe was a good step. We'll see. Momentum doesn't really necessarily seem to be a thing with Nick sometimes.
Yeah, the difference with him this year, Bob, is that he since April. I mean, obviously April was a total disaster, but maybe like last year he would have, and even a little bit in 22, he would have a more sustained stretch of good in his streakiness, right? Whereas this year it's coming in spurts.
It comes in like a series pop, but like it doesn't come in a 14-day pop.
Yes. Yeah. That's kind of the difference. Right. And that's okay, but it's not, I get it. I kind of agree, and I'm one of the Nick Castellanos defenders. I kind of expected him to come out from under. I remember you asked me, is he going to hit 250 this year? And I said, yes. It's going to be tough to get there, but I think he's going to get close. But yeah, I mean, since May 19th, he's hitting 275, 815 OPS.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
it's good.
I'm not even being critical of him. It was just me saying, hey, this is my reaction to these injuries. Like, it's time now.
Yeah.
Where I'm building, though, is actually going to go the opposite direction. Like, I have to tell you, the Marlins are dead last in the National League in runs per game this year. They're 29th in Major League Baseball. Am I off base? And I might be, and you can tell me I am. The pitching has carried this team now. I mean, look, the Phillies have a good offense. I'm not sitting here and saying the Phillies don't have a good offense. They certainly have a bunch of impact bats. Great. And they score runs too. I mean, the stats are the stats. But there have been so many times this season where the pitching has really, in games specifically in a vacuum, led the way. And you say, wow, they would have had no shot tonight if they didn't get a great start from this guy, or if the bullpen didn't throw those 4 innings, or what have you. But this weekend, man, from afar, a little bit disappointed. Like, Ranger Suarez against the Miami Marlins can't get through the 5th. 9 hits, 6 earned, no strikeouts. We're talking about this guy being Cy Young. Like, that was not a Cy Young effort yesterday. Aaron Nola, like, and I appreciate that there's no margin for error. Like, I get it. I understand there's not a lot of margin for error for these pitchers right now, and it makes it hard on them. But, like, come on, man. Taking a 2-1 lead in the 7th inning yesterday, and you can't close the door on the Marlins? Thursday night. Zach Wheeler, like, couldn't slam the door. I know that Scott in the way. Like, I get all that. Matt Strom, come on, brother. Jeff Hoffman, where are you at? Like, it's the Marlins, for Christ's sake. And they did it to him like 3 different times this weekend. I found that very strange.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I think it was just
one of those series. Like,
well, the one that concerns me a little bit is Ranger, because his velocity was down yesterday.
I know.
That one I want to keep more of an eye on. You know, I look at the Wheeler thing and I'm like, dude was out of the inning, and umpire screwed him. And then he comes out of the game and you're thinking, okay, well, Matt Strom's going to come in and shut the door. And Matt Strom's been fantastic and he got hit, right? So you can't complain about one bad outing for Matt Strom. And, you know, Hoffman had a bad outing too there. Like, the two best relievers lost the game on Thursday night, right? I mean, that's just what happened.
Well, and I saw that. And if we were doing this on Friday, I saw a bunch of people as I was catching up. I was like, oh, Rob, leave it to Rob. And I'm like, what do you want? Like, you had your best starting pitcher, your best reliever, and your second best reliever all in the game successively. And, like, they didn't get it done. Like, what do you want? You know, exactly. Give me a 3-0 lead with Zach Wheeler starting an inning, Strom and Hoffman getting hot. Like, I'll take that 100 times out of 100.
Yes, 1,000%. So, like, I look at that and say, yeah, that's a frustrating loss. But at the same time, with the way things have been going with this team for those guys this year, you kind of just chalk it up. Again, we say it all the time. The best teams are going to still lose 60 times a year, right? And that's going to be one of them. The Nola thing was, you got to get Nick Fortes out.
Yeah.
And he said, I asked him after the game about it. And he said, I didn't want to walk Fortes and probably left a pitch out that he, was able to handle, that it's not a pitch I shouldn't throw there, because he was worried about walking him. And it's like, okay, he admitted to what his mistake was, right? You shouldn't have to worry about that. Like, just freaking throw the curveball and let him swing over it and get out of the inning, and you're fine. Right. Instead, you throw him a cookie and he hits a double down. The 158 hitter hits a double down the line, and then Strom can't get the next guy out, and there we go. You lose that game, right? And then Suarez, like I said, that's the one that bothers me a little bit. Bullpen was really good yesterday. And everybody who came in, Ruiz, Dominguez, Gregory Soto, maybe the best inning he's thrown as a Philly.
Yeah,
he was great yesterday. Everybody who came into that game, and Hoffman shutting the door. So the bullpen was really good. So, okay. And of course, we didn't even mention it yet. Freaking Christopher Sanchez was lights out on Friday night. I had the NHL draft, so I wasn't down there, but I had NHL draft on one screen and I had Christopher Sanchez on the other screen. And I was just fascinated by how well he pitched in that game.
He was unbelievable.
Yeah,
he seemed like he got stronger as it went along. I mean, last time we talked, it was like, hey, Christopher Sanchez, it's a shame that the Phillies have all these other all-stars. He's going to get boxed out. Now I'm looking at it and saying, I don't know. He's one start away here. How do you leave him off?
Yeah.
Like, how do you leave him off? He's right there. I mean, in fact, interestingly enough, and I'm not absolutely sure this is true, but I believe against the Tigers, Trey Turner was issued an error after the fact.
Yes.
Which I think saved Ranger 2 earned runs in that start.
It did. It did.
So it kept him under 2 coming into his start yesterday. Now he's up to 227. If that scoring decision had not been overturned, I believe, I'll have to check this, but I believe Christopher Sanchez would actually have a better ERA than Ranger Suarez right now.
I think you might be right.
So that's something to think about.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's been great. I think you have a really strong case for Ranger Suarez, Zach Wheeler, and Christopher Sanchez. And in some way, I almost feel like Sanchez is, I don't want to say more deserving than either of the other two, but it would almost be.
Well, he's come out of nowhere, right? And so I think that's what the thing.
So there's a little bit of a story to it too.
Yeah, there's a great story to it, exactly. So, I mean, it was funny. There was a question that was asked of Rob Saturday. We were in his office before the game, like, I forget who it was that asked. It might have been Paul Hagan, that asked, guys like Sanchez and Suarez, are you concerned at all as their innings continue to mount, because they've never thrown, all these innings, and you're looking at, 175, 180 innings for these guys, maybe even 200 for Ranger. Is there a concern because of that? And Rob said, not in the immediate, not right now, there isn't, but it's definitely something worth keeping an eye on. Bob, there's just part of me that believes that if they are able to maintain this lead in the division, and it gets, towards the end of the year, and it's obvious that the Braves just aren't going to come back and the Phillies are going to win the division, I think we might see them go 6-man rotation, bring up somebody else.
I do too. Do you think that's wise?
Well, that's to me is going to be an interesting conversation that we're going to have at that time of year, because it will really, my answer might change depending on how they're pitching at the moment, right? Because if they're going really well, I wouldn't make that change. But if you're starting to see a little oil leaking, then yeah, I'm in favor of it. I'm cool with it, right? But I think it's coming. I do think it's coming.
Well, I think we're in an interesting point in the conversation then, because I was just going to kind of say, hey, look, all this stuff happens with Schwarber and Harper, and there's been so much to talk about. Since we last spoke, the Phillies are now down their 5th starter as well. The Spencer Turnbull injury happens, and I guess we might see him in mid-August, 3rd week of August. We aren't going to see him this month. So What does this look like? I know that you were, as were many people. I have not talked to an observer of the Phillies that was not impressed by Michael Mercado this spring. I listened to Tim Kelly the other day. He was doing the pregame show with Greg Murphy, and he was talking about Mercado, and he said, I was super impressed with him, and I think that he could be a good major league back of the rotation guy, or even a good bullpen piece. He's like, I think he's that versatile. High praise. Tim is not one to hyperbolize that often. He's a pretty grounded guy. Is there a chance that Michael Mercado is the 5th starter for this team all the way through? Like, is that a potential outcome here?
It's tough to say yes to that, Bob, because he's not started a game yet, and we'll see that after tomorrow. Let's see how he pitches against the Cubs.
And he's got what, about 85, 90, they said? Is that
90? He was stretched out to 90. So, I mean, he's giving you at least 5 innings unless he blows up. So yeah, let's see what it looks like. But I like his stuff.
Do you think the combination of Mercado, Walker's hot spot getting better? I just can't believe I even said that. And and Spencer Turnbull coming back in 6, 7, 8 weeks from now, like, is that enough? Do you feel good about that? Or is this a situation where we were just saying, like, why on earth would you expend any capital to bolster your starting rotation? But do they need to think about that now?
The only thing I would do, and it's a great question, but the only thing I would do is I would consider adding another arm that can start, but maybe is more of a swingman type that can also relieve if need be, right? And so, like, that's the kind of thing, like, because you don't know what Mercado is going to be. Even you might not even know what Mercado is going to be even as you get to the deadline, because he's going to make 2 starts before the All-Star break. One, he's going to have to pitch against 2, probably 2 starts, maybe a third. I might be miscounting, but even that, you come back from the All-Star break, it's 2 weeks in his trade deadline. So how many starts is he going to give you? 4, 5? Are you going to sit there and go, we're good for the rest of the year based off of 5 Michael Mercado starts? Right. I don't know if that's the case, right? So I still think it might behoove them to find a guy that could maybe do both.
Are you interested in a Michael Lorenzen reunion as he's toiling away with a pretty mediocre Rangers team that just doesn't look like it's going to happen for them this year? 1 year, $4.5 million deal.
He's that kind of guy. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that kind of player would work,
Yeah. I saw Destiny Legardo tweeted out a picture of Zach Eflin and said it's time for the reunion. Can I get your reaction to that? I love that because I like Zach Eflin as a human being.
But, yeah, well, he's great, and he fits the clubhouse, right? Yeah. And that would be perfect fit.
Again, swing, he can do both. We watched him do it in the postseason 2 years ago.
Yeah, I would have
1 year left, I believe. What did he get? 3 years, 40 from the Rays?
Yeah. Okay. So we'd have 1 more year. I guess the only concern with that is that what does that future look like?
Yeah, what are you doing with Zach Eflin at $13 million next season?
Because you have 4 starters already locked up for next year. Well, I shouldn't say locked up, but Rangers got 1 more arbitration year, and then you assume Painter is going to be coming in
on an innings limit, though, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's exactly what it is. Maybe it's veteran guy that can hold it down. I guess they still do employ Taijuan Walker though. So
he's still under contract.
Yeah.
So
okay, never mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice story. I don't think it's as
that one's not going to get written.
Yeah, I don't think that one gets written. That's right.
Okay, all right. I like the idea though. Okay. Here's what I want to talk about. The Phillies need to go out and add an impact bat. That's something that this podcast has said a dozen times now. It's something that is getting said all over the place. It's being written about. Okay, great, awesome. We all agree. Another bat would be really big for this team. Very cool. Right now, you look at the standings here on July 1st, and I think it's a good time to do this. Here are the teams that absolutely are not making the playoffs this season. Just straight up have no shot. Cannot happen. The Oakland Athletics, who are 26 games under 500. The Chicago White Sox, who are 24-62. And that's it. Those are the only teams definitively that are not making the postseason in the American League. And I know there's another few, and we'll go back and talk about them that probably aren't.
Well, what about, are you not counting the National League?
Not yet. I'm not there. So now the National League, the Rockies at 28-55.
Yeah.
No shot. Marlins at 30-54. No shot. So by my count, there are only 4 teams that you can essentially fully 100% eliminate right now from the equation. Mm-hmm. I would concede that at this point, it feels unlikely that the Cubs make a run at 39-46. They've lost 3 of their last 7. I don't like that team. I don't think they can hit. That's it, though. Like, I guess, like, you want to throw the Nationals in? Like, I think the Nationals could make a run. Like,
the interesting thing with the Nationals to me, though, Bob, is they just called up their uber outfield prospect, Jake Wood, right?
Yeah.
Does that make
it could in that league, in the way that this league right now, does that make a difference? Like, it sure could.
But I was going to ask though,
make it okay.
Does it make Thomas expendable?
Is that a guy that you feel like is a needle mover for them?
I don't know if it's a needle move, but I think he's a really good hitter, and he would come in here and be a really nice piece to this lineup.
Is the thought of the 2011 Hunter Pence move, like where you're a good team and you want to drop the hammer and just go for it, like, is that day just come and gone? Like, does that player just not exist? It's a nice idea in theory to do this, but it just isn't reality.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's dead, but I think it's less likely because you're in an era where so many more teams 500 teams are in contention. Whereas back in 2011, 500 teams, even though there was a wild card, 500 teams were not in contention. So you need it to be timed properly in a sense that there needs to be a really, really bad team that has a really, really good player that is about to be traded. So you mentioned 4 teams that are out of the playoff race right now. Do any of them have that stud player that you're going to look at and say, oh, that's the guy?
Yeah, and I mean, just to extend this out a little bit further, like if you're being realistic, the Blue Jays are 7.5 out of a wild card. They don't feel likely to get it together. The Tigers, I don't think have a shot in hell. They can't hit. The Rangers, you have to respect the fact that they're the defending champion, but like they just can't seem to get it going. The Angels stink. The Athletics stink. The White Sox stink. Like, they're all of those teams. So that's 6 American League teams right now. I would tell you are very unlikely, and I might even throw the Rays into that. I'm not a Rays believer, and God knows they're cheap and always looking ahead. So maybe you throw them into the mix as well. I think the Astros are very much alive. So I would not include, like, I think the Kyle Tucker thing, I'd be stunned.
Yeah.
I don't, that does not feel realistic. And then in the National League, it's totally wide open. I mean, even like I just said, I don't believe in the Cubs, but they're only 5 games out of a playoff spot right now. I mean, the Mets 2 back, the Diamondbacks 2.5, the Giants 3, the Pirates 3, Nationals 4, Reds 4.5, Cubs 5. I mean, none of these teams right now to me feel like a dead red cell. So you have 30 days here to let this thing materialize. I just don't know. It feels like there's more buyers than there are sellers right now.
There's totally.
Is there a team? Let me ask it to you this way, because I think that this is an exercise that most baseball fans have thought about. Like, oh, wow, there aren't a lot of sellers. Okay, cool. Great. We probably have not just provided you as a listener with new information in saying that. But is there a team that would be more motivated or should be more motivated than the Philadelphia Phillies going into this trade deadline to make a splash? Because we always look at it through the lens of the Phillies. This team needs this. This is what they should do. But now put it up against everyone else. Is there another team lurking out there that would be a player in a splash scenario?
Well, I think Baltimore needs to make a splash in pitching because of all the injuries that they've had. And, they have a World Series lineup. They need better pitching. So I think that's a splash team. The Yankees, you always got to assume, are a splash team.
I know the Yankees are dealing with injuries. And I said this to a friend of mine this past week as I was watching them get beat up by the Mets. I said, I think the Yankees might stink. And he goes, like, stink is harsh. I said, I know, but like, stink in context. Like, I've been saying it for months. Like, you just got back Garrett Cole, who was very good yesterday, by the way, against the Blue Jays. But like, I just don't see it. I don't get that feel from them. I just don't. I thought that was embarrassing that they lost both of those games to the Mets this week.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know how many more times we have to say it on this show, Bob.
It's like kind of pathetic.
Like, it's their offense is limited, and their pitching was always going to fall back to earth. And they're not going to win that division. They're going to be a wild card team unless they go and make a couple of huge moves here at the deadline. But yeah, they don't.
By the way, I was wrong. I was wrong. I said last Monday on our YouTube exclusive, thank you, Rush Joy, that this was the week to fade the Mets.
Yeah.
And they went 3-2. They take both against the Yankees. They lose 2 out of 3 to the Astros. I'm going to tell you something. Friday night, they have that win against Houston. And I'm like, wow, okay, now that's 3 in a row. Yankees, Astros, like, this is a really good week. And then I look out on the field and I see Jose Iglesias singing his newly released solo post-game at Citi Field. Did you catch this?
Yeah, the dancing thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, it's time to fade the Mets. That's enough. There's no more. And then they get the big lead on Saturday, come out guns blazing, they blow it. They come back yesterday late, force extra innings, and then they unravel in extras. I think we might be back with the Mets. The Mets are not bad. Like I said in the beginning of the year, that if there was ever a team that was designed to go 81-81, it's the New York Mets.
Yeah.
And then they were horrible. I mean, like, they were a joke. And then they've gotten hot to get themselves back to 500. And I just feel like you open up like the app or you watch them on TV and you're like, how the hell is this team up 5-0? Like, it's not a good offense. They have some parts, but I'm like, I just think that's it. We've seen the best of the Mets.
Yeah.
So now I'm fading the Mets.
Yeah. They're not, they just don't have the pitching, right? You can get all grimaced up with the Mets. You could get all Jose Iglesias up with the Mets. They're just not good enough. That's it. I mean, come on. Yeah.
Although I will say, like, I because we're Mets haters from afar, we go, grimace, for Christ's sake. That was cool. Like, if that happened here, we'd be selling shirts and Grimace saved the season.
Oh, yeah, but you know what? Here's the difference, though, Bob, because would it work here? Yeah, because the team's good enough, right?
We'd be all in on Jose Iglesias.
We'd be all in on that stuff.
This is awesome.
Like, stuff like that, though, to me, on a 500 team is kind of terrible. Like, come on, man. Is there a 500
I don't
team?
know. Or is it fun, and like we're grumpy old men, and like it's sort of fun, and like, look, that team's probably not going to win 95 games and make the World Series this year. So as a Mets fan, you should enjoy all of that.
Go ahead, go nuts, enjoy it, but don't think it's rallying your team to
any world where this is actually horrible for the Mets long term. Do they have enough there that they could have traded off if they just went full sell mode, that it would have made a difference moving forward? And they still could. I mean, the month of July could be horrendous for them, and they decide to do that ultimately.
Yeah, I do think that that's a possibility still. I mean, look, they're in the playoff race, right? They're
like,
in
what kind of deal would Pete Alonso, like if you said, all right, Pete, see you later, is that you get back a pretty good haul for that?
Yeah, you probably get something for that for Pete, but I mean, he is a free agent at the end of the year, so he could potentially re-sign right back with the Mets again. He loves New York. So maybe teams know that and say, okay, well, I'm just renting him for a half year, so maybe I'm not going to give up my top prospect. Maybe I'll give you like my third best prospect for Pete Alonso. And the team that, to be honest with you, the team that could use him the most is on the other side of the river there in New York, because they don't have a first baseman. Like, that would be a good fit. You know, yeah. He doesn't have to leave New York. He'd be happy. Go play for the Yankees and, you know, make a decision in the offseason where you want to go. I don't know. I don't know what the Mets are going to do. I think that they might kind of just leave well enough alone and not do a lot. And just try to get there, get into the playoffs with what you got and see what happens.
All right. I know we're a Phillies podcast. We talk a lot about just the Phillies. We have here now talked a little bit about the league as a whole. I want to check in with you because we really are basically now at the midway point.
Yeah.
Some teams have crossed it. I think some teams are right at it, if I'm not mistaken. So let's check in here real quick. Who's winning the American League East?
Baltimore.
Okay. It's even up right now. And by percentage, the Orioles are in first place. So Baltimore is going to go out, add pitching, because God knows they need to. Cole Irvin. And that clock striking midnight there a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, we talked about this before, right? I mean, it's like, he's made himself a usable pitcher, right? But
the Rangers just beat the shit out of them on national TV last night.
Wyatt Langford with the spike hit for the cycle last night.
Yeah,
on national television. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was one. If you're ESPN, it's the top of the fourth inning, it's 5-1. It's the top of the fifth inning, it's 8-1, and you say, oof. But Cole Irvin now, last two starts has been brutal. They need to add pitching, because I think that if they don't, they're going to cost themselves a chance to win a World Series this year.
Yes.
But I agree with you. I believe that they will do that, and I think that they are going to win the American League East. We have thought that all along. Okay. The AL Central. Is anybody catching the Cleveland Guardians?
I don't think anybody's going to catch them, although Minnesota's been playing a lot better baseball, kind of under the radar a little bit. They've been playing better baseball, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they find themselves, making the playoffs now, whereas earlier this year we kind of thought, Kansas City's the one team in the Central who can kind of maybe be the wild card team out of there. I think Minnesota's kind of gotten to where we thought they are. They're 10 games over 500 right now. They're playing pretty good baseball. I think that the Guardians are the best team in the division, but I think that the Twins are ultimately going to get a wild card spot, and Kansas City might just miss.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you about Kansas City. Like, got off to a really good start. They're still 8 games over. It kind of just feels like it's a slow think back to.
Well, you're talking about pitchers like Seth Lugo, who's been fantastic, right? Michael Wacha, who's been good, even though he had a quick IL stint, but he's been good. Like, these are guys that are just guys, and they're pitching over their heads. And so the one thing you have to ask yourself is, when do they come back to the norm? When do they start pitching like who they really are? Right. And that's why I think that there's a lot to like about the Royals going forward. I mean, I think Bobby Witt might be the best shortstop in the game. And it'd be great if they made the playoffs. I don't know if they can sustain. That's my one. I know they're there right now. I don't necessarily know if they hold on to a playoff spot.
All right, AL West. Certainly the Mariners have gotten off to a nice start here. They're 18 games, or I'm sorry, no, they're 8 games over 500. Astros lurking. How do you see that shaking out?
I still think Houston pulls it out.
So do I. And if you look at run differential, by the way, I mean,
yeah,
Seattle's +6, and
yeah.
The Astros are +33.
Yeah,
3.5 games back.
Astros have been playing really good baseball, and I think that they let the Mariners let them hang around too long, in my mind, and that's part of the problem with the way that they construct that team. I think the Mariners have the next best starting pitching rotation after the Phillies in baseball, but their lineup is bad. And so they're going to add at the deadline. Well, that's great, but you let the Houston Astros freaking hang around long enough that team's got enough talent that they're going to surpass you. Absolutely. So, I think Houston wins the division. Seattle probably still gets in as a wild card. I still think they're a good enough team to make the playoffs, and I think they're a dangerous team in the playoffs because of their pitching. But I think that Houston's probably the better team.
Okay, I think you kind of just revealed it here, but give me your 3 American League wildcard teams then.
Yankees, Seattle, and I'm going to say Minnesota, but I'm not counting Boston out yet. I think Boston's been a little bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah.
There's a couple guys on that team who've had some nice years that you didn't kind of expect them to have the years that they've had. I'll tell you, I really like that Jarren Duran.
Yeah,
the leadoff table setter for them, man. He's an electric player. O'Neal's been great for them, right? So they're getting some bats to support Devers, and they got some good pitching. So like Boston could be the other team that gets in ahead of Minnesota. I think they're the 2 teams that battle for the last spot.
Okay, then kick it over to the National League here. Anybody catching the Phillies? 8 games up.
No, Phillies are going to win the division.
Okay.
But I give them credit for.
Are we going to record on Monday of next week talking about Atlanta sweeping the Phillies, and now all of a sudden it's a 5-game lead, and what are we doing here, and what the hell, and all that? Is that going to happen?
No, I don't think so. Although I do think that they probably lose 2 out of 3 in Atlanta. But that's again, you're playing them without Schwarber and Harper and Real Muto. So let's be honest about it. And I think. The one thing that I thought was interesting, Bob, is because I asked Rob about this, is Wheeler's not pitching that series. And they had with today's off day, they had the ability to keep Wheeler on schedule.
Is it going to be Nola, Suarez, Mercado against the Braves then?
Yes. They had an opportunity to keep Wheeler on schedule. Because of the off day today, Wheeler could have pitched tomorrow, and Mercado could have gone Wednesday. They decided to flip it, and I asked Rob about it, and he said that the plan originally was to have Wheeler pitch in Atlanta. But once his last start, that 7th inning that you were talking about, he went beyond the number of pitches that they wanted him to throw. He ended up throwing 115 in that start. He said, just because of that, I want to give him an extra day. And so now, he'll start against the Dodgers, which he would have missed the Dodgers if he would have pitched the Sunday against Atlanta. So you're picking, where do you want your guys? Somebody's got to miss one of those series, right? But I think that sets you up to lose 2 out of 3 against the Braves because of that.
I know that we're talking about a team that's 26 games over 500 and the expectations being what they are, but I always look at it week by week. Like, what would I deem an acceptable or a passable week? Phillies have to go 2-4 this week. That's my mindset. Like, if you can take 2 out of 3 against the Cubs and lose 2 out of 3 against the Braves, I think that's a clear win.
Yeah, I think that's what you're looking at. I think that's what you're looking at. I think you're looking at 3-3 this week.
You think they get 2 out of 3 in Chicago?
Well, who's pitching for the Cubs? Hayden Wisniewski.
He's been okay.
It doesn't impress me.
Okay.
Shota Imanaga, who was
he's going against a guy that we've never even seen start a major league game, for Christ's sake. So are the Cubs not going to be favored in that game? I would think so.
They might be.
Wheeler, Imanaga's been not great lately.
That's what I'm saying. He got off to a great start, but he's been mediocre since. And then Jameson Taillon, who they kill every time that they play him.
Weird though, you know, we looked at him and said, "Oh, this is a guy that they're going to pound." Last year, I mean, he was so bad.
Yeah,
it's been pretty good for them this year. So
yeah.
I hear you. I mean, I'm going to take Christopher Sanchez all day. I do think that they have the advantage in 2 of those 3 games, and we'll see.
Yeah. The other good news about the Atlanta series is they miss Chris Sale.
Yeah,
it looks like they're going to miss Chris Sale in that series.
Yeah,
so interesting there. Interesting setup for the Braves as well. So anyway,
all right. So the NL Central, who do you have here?
I'm going to stick with the Brewers to win the division, just because I don't believe in the Cardinals.
Okay.
And I don't think anybody else is close enough to catch them.
Yeah. All five teams are within. Oh, I'm sorry. No. So only the Cardinals are even really in arms. I'm looking at the wild card.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6.5 back, St. Louis. St. Louis kind of creeping up there all of a sudden. 7-3 their last 10 now, 3 games over 500. I guess they're alive. All right, and then in the West, certainly you'll take the Dodgers.
Dodgers,
I'll
yes.
kill the suspense there. It's interesting. Remember how a few weeks back the games against 500 or better opponents was such a big talking point here?
Yeah.
It's gone away, but the Phillies they've played 24 games against teams with winning records right now.
Yeah.
24. They're 15-9. The Dodgers, 24 games, 15-9. Everyone else has played. It looks like at least 32.
Yeah, but here's the thing: 15-9 is good.
Oh, I know. It's not that they haven't performed well against those teams. They just haven't played many of them.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, and so then in the wild card, you're going to take. Let me guess. I'm going to get out in front of this. I'm going to guess your wild card teams because they're going to be the same as mine. The Braves.
Yeah.
You're going to take the Cardinals, and you're going to take the Padres.
No, you're close. I got the Braves and the Padres. I think those 2 are going to be in. I'm not buying the Cardinals, and I know at the beginning of the year I went with the Reds. I think that there's more talent there, but they've just been disappointing. I don't understand why they're 6 games under 500, so they might not get it. The team that I'm going to keep an eye on is the Pittsburgh Pirates. They have the pitching. Okay. They have the pitching. They need to bolster that lineup. Let's see what they do at the deadline. If they can add a couple bats, they could sneak in. And I'll tell you, Bob, that's a scary team to play in a short series.
I wouldn't want to play them.
Right? The way that those pitchers have been going for them this year. So Skeens and Keller and Jones and even freaking Bailey Falter has pitched well for them, right?
I'm going to give you an opportunity to change your World Series Phillies-Orioles matchup with the Phillies winning it. Are you going to do so?
I'm not going to do it now. It's still
I'm not
too
either.
early.
That's my matchup.
Yeah, it's still too early. If the Orioles don't address the pitching at the deadline, then I might change it after that. I might say, they blew it, right? They need to fix that, and they didn't. But I give them for now, I'm going to give them the time to get it right, and I still think that that's the matchup in the World Series.
All right, give me one last thing.
Well, first of all, happy Bobby Bonilla Day.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
tradition unlike any other.
He gets his $1.19 million from the New York Mets today, which is
beautiful,
which is nice. I don't know if you saw this one, Bob, but former Phillies top prospect Spencer Howard was DFA'd by the San Francisco Giants.
Despite the fact that he was fantastic against the Phillies.
I know. I think it was his only good outing of the year because he ended up pitching 24 innings. I think it was 3 against the Phillies, right? 3 shutout innings against the Phillies. Might have been 4. I forget what it was. But he had a 5.63 ERA over 24 innings.
Not great.
Yeah, and his career ERA is 6.93 in 139 innings with the Phillies, Rangers, and Giants. Do we ever see Spencer Howard in the major leagues again?
I'm going to say no. I was there when he made his debut in 2020. And I remember it was a doubleheader, and it was exciting, and it was like, here's the future. And I remember him taking the ball, and at the end of the game being like, not only were the results like mixed, I guess.
Yeah. I
didn't feel like I was watching something special. And then it just kind of continued. And then there was the running out of gas. And then I forget who they were playing. Remember he had a couple good innings early, and he ran down the first baseline to try to beat out a ball, and he didn't, and then he fell apart. Like, and after the game, he was like, "Yeah, that took a lot out of me," and I was like, "This isn't gonna work." Like, it never gained any traction. Didn't gain any traction here. Didn't gain any traction anywhere else for him.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think that we've seen the last of Spencer Howard in the majors. He'll probably end up somewhere else. I don't think anybody will claim him. He'll probably either I guess he has enough service time to decline the assignment and become a free agent.
Yeah.
So maybe he latches on somewhere else as a depth piece. But yeah, I think we've seen the last of him. One other name I wanted to kind of bring up, and it kind of relates to the Phillies a little bit, as an interesting, because we were talking about, what do you do for that swing guy, or, think about the number 5 spot, add somebody in. A former rival who's seems like he's been in baseball for 20 years, but he's still only 33 years old, opted out of his minor league deal with the Baltimore Orioles yesterday. And that was Julio Teheran.
Yeah.
Had a nice season as a relief pitcher last year, but can start. Is that a name that potentially interests you? As if Michael Mercado doesn't work out, maybe we bring him in and fill that role.
I don't know, but isn't it interesting that we're just talking about how pitching starved the Orioles are right now, and they couldn't find a way to make that work?
Well, I think it was a situation where he was on he wasn't on their 40, so he had an opt-out at June 30th if he wasn't on the major league roster by then, and he took it. So,
got it. Yeah, he was, let's see, with 71 2/3 again with Milwaukee last year.
Yeah.
Okay, 4.4 ERA. His whip was like 1.1. He was actually, his ERA is a little bit more inflated than what you'd expect. The thing that always bothered me with him is that he just he threw hard and he just didn't strike anybody out. And he didn't strike anybody out last year either. And I think that's one of the things with him where you're like, all right. Maybe for where the Phillies are at, where you don't want to spend, you need another body that you could potentially get in there for a few starts or a few innings, and maybe. I
mean, you asked about Michael Lorenzen. I think it's the same kind of the same kind of guy, right?
Yeah.
But
by the way, I just wanted to validate my memory here. 2021, Spencer Howard's first start comes in May against the Red Sox. First 2 innings, clean, hitting 96 on the gun. Third inning, he jogs down to first base. Fastball sat at 93, tipped to 90-91. After the game, said that the jog to first base impacted his velocity. And I think that was the moment where he said, nope, this isn't going to work. So,
yeah.
There you go. I did remember that.
Yeah.
That was back in my 67 out of 81 games covering the team. So you remember those little details a little bit more.
And not only that, it was during COVID, right?
Well, 21 was, I guess, the welcome back, right? But COVID, I was one of probably 19 people on hand to see, other than players, see Spencer Howard's debut in 2020. That was, I'll never forget it. Where were you the day that Spencer Howard?
21, if I remember correctly, didn't they? It wasn't until like June.
Was it like limited capacity for the first 2 months or something? I think it was
a smaller number of people were allowed in. Yeah. So
there you go. All right. Well, never dull moment with the Philadelphia Phillies. We will be back later this week. I hope that everybody gets to hear this. I hope that Russ Joy is back from the Outer Banks and can get this up. Maybe I'll even put a little, I'll try to lean on him here and see if we can get this thing into the feed by 10 a.m. rather than 2:30 p.m. too. Did he record with all the Flyer stuff? Did he record from the beach?
We did.
I thought Russ was a dedicated podcaster.
Yeah, we did this. We did the draft. Ready for this? On the first round of the NHL draft, Flyers have 2 picks in the first round of the draft. Neither Russ nor Bundy were available. So I ended up doing it with intern Andrew and Bill Meltzer, who filled in for those guys.
Oh, is that why you texted me best Flyers podcast I've done in years? Is that why?
That's exactly why I texted that. That's exactly why I texted that. Yeah.
That didn't happen. I'm not trying to get you in trouble or anything. All right. Well, look, for Anthony Sanfilippo, I'm Bob Wankel. We will talk to you later this week.